Welcome back, everyone. Hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you for clicking on my video. My name is Frank, and I'm here to talk about blues harmonica today. Specifically, my journey with blues harmonica, how I came to play blues harmonica and slide guitar, two instruments that are intimately connected with the blues. I was just thinking about this earlier, that it's just a very random story of how it happened. I didn't plan it. I never thought that I would play blues harmonica. In fact, if you went back like 10 years and told the young me, like, hey, one day you're going to play blues harmonica and slide, I would be like, what does that mean? Like, that just wouldn't make any sense to me. But I wanted to talk about my journey of how I got there, because it's something that I look back on it and I'm like, it's just weird. It's just random. I just never would have imagined it ever in my life that I would, as a young man, I never would have thought that one day I would play blues harmonica or slide, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out, and blues is now an integral part of my life, so I just want to talk about it. Now, going back to the earliest influences, I only started playing and listening to blues music. Well, okay, yeah, well, we'll start at the beginning. There's a lot. I made a few notes here so I don't lose track of anything, because I have some things that I did want to talk about, but we'll start at the beginning. So as a young man, as a kid, as a child, I always appreciated music. Always had an appreciation for it from a young age. I can remember, going to weddings with my parents in Barcelona, like when I was a kid, like a little kid. And there was this guy, I think his name was David Bisbal, and he had this song called Corazón Latino. I think that's my first, yeah, that's definitely like my first musical memory, right? Definitely. I must have been like literally a child. I was like 3, 4, 5 years old, around there. And my father's a guitar player, not so much when I was young, but the older I got, the more he played. He kind of like took a break for a little while, I think. And so he was always an influence in that sense, that my dad has always been a very musical person. He's familiar with the catalog of the time that he grew up in. And when I was a kid, like on car rides for field trips and stuff, he would always play really good stuff. I remember listening to the Carpenters a lot, also Red Hot Chili Peppers. I know those are two completely different genres, but both are really great in their own rights. And so that's another really big building block of that, is just having that. And then the only other thing that I can remember from childhood, again, this is from childhood, I did not play when I was a kid. I only started playing instruments 6 or 7 years ago-ish. So, and the last thing as a child that was a big influence was Rockstar or not Rockstar, was it called Rockstar? Like Guitar Hero. There was Guitar Hero and Rock Band. Rock Band was the other one. When I was a kid, those were very popular games, both of them, and they're just these games where you hook up a little electric guitar and, you just kind of play the notes that you see on the screen. And the games are great for introducing a young audience to rock music in general. I played both. Well, not so much. I had the Guitar Hero on DS and then Rock Band on the Wii. Yeah, we were a Nintendo family. What do you want me to tell you? And I remember that was also a very big influence, especially the DS one. I know that's not necessarily a good game, but the song selection is decent, and I played the hell out of it. It was definitely a very big influence. I could probably still recall more than half of the tracks from the soundtrack of that game. So those are the three big things when I was young. But again, I did not play, nor did I have any kind of passion. Now, actually, you know what? That's not true. I say that I didn't play, but I actually did. I got piano lessons. I played saxophone in middle school, but neither of those two things did I feel passionate about. I mean, I remember starting saxophone in the 6th grade, and I remember thinking that it was cool, and I remember thinking, like, yeah, there's something here, like, but even with the education that was provided to me to play the saxophone, I couldn't put two and two together. Like, nothing magical ever happened. It's not like I went home and just ripped my own solos, I would just I wouldn't even practice for band, honestly. I failed out of band. The teacher didn't even let me go on the band field trip because I gotta be honest, I was not a good saxophone player. Again, I just didn't care. It didn't speak to me. Yeah, and the piano thing was much younger when I was a kid. When we first moved to the United States, I was born in Barcelona, Spain. And when we moved to the United States, I must have been 6. And by the time I was 7 or 8 or 9, somewhere around there, I, again, took piano lessons. I don't remember anything. I remember the color of the instruction book and that I hated when was like forced to practice, right? And so none of that stuck. So it's funny that it didn't stick to the point that for a second there I was about to say I never played an instrument before that, but I did. I tried to play saxophone and I could play a scale on the saxophone and I used to be able to read music. Now I look at musical notation and it's like I understand kind of what to do. Like I have an idea, but I don't. Back then, I knew a lot more. Like the way that the notes link together. I don't. They call them slurs, like the little bar that goes over the note. I don't. I just remember bits and pieces of reading sheet music, and I couldn't do anything with sheet music nowadays for the life of me, which is a shame because I wish that is the one thing that I could have sort of held on to, but none of it ever stuck with me. Now, the big turning point in music for me came in high school. I was 14 years old, and at the end of freshman year, I bought some weed from a kid on the last day of school. I don't know why I did it. I honestly can't remember what the hell I was thinking. I was just like, yeah, like I'll buy some weed. And I just hung on to it for a while. I didn't touch that weed. I just kind of put it in a drawer and I was like, I am in possession of marijuana. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was cool to have the drug in my house. But I didn't really smoke it or anything. I just kind of left it there and like would look at it every now and then. And then one day, my parents were gone and I smoked. And from that point on, from the point that I started getting high, I started listening to a lot more music because I discovered something that I think a lot of people discover. Not everybody, it doesn't work like this for everyone, but for me, this was a very pronounced effect. When I first began smoking marijuana, I would listen to music and it was incredible. I mean, I could hear every single layer. By the way, I'm listening to like MP3s, right? Like the worst quality of music. The only thing worse at that time would have been a cassette, right? So I'm listening to, but I can still differentiate every single channel. Like all of a sudden music takes on this. And by the way, again, I always loved music. Like up until this point, right before I started smoking weed, I had been listening to thrash. That's what I was into. I was a metalhead. I liked Megadeth, Metallica, just thrash metal. I liked Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, all those guys, right? I was a metal kid. I was a hard rock type of guy. And it was so funny. As soon as I started smoking weed, I mellowed out so much. I started listening to the Grateful Dead. I started listening to Pink Floyd. Music just took on a completely different aspect. It just felt different. It affected me differently in so many different ways. Like I could understand it now. It like went straight to my heart. Like I know if you're a sober person watching this, you're probably like, what the hell's wrong? What is this guy talking about? But I know there's at least a few people out there that know what I'm talking about when I say, when I started smoking marijuana, I mean, my perception of music just was changed for the better forever. And let me tell you guys, in my high school days, all that mattered to me, the only thing that I did, the only thing that was fucking important to me was getting high and listening to records, okay? Not literally records, but I'm very much a fan of the album, right? I would download these entire albums off of YouTube and all these other websites. I would do the YouTube 10p3, and sometimes I would just torrent, like entire discographies. And I was just listening to anything that I could get my hands on that was cool. But I was fascinated with psychedelic rock. I was fascinated, to be honest, now that I think about it, with the relationship of drugs and music, which is something that I can make an entire video about because, man, there's just so much to say on that topic. Let me just put it to you this way. Go back to any artist whatsoever, like any of the classic ones that you think about, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, just anything from that era, like late 60s to about mid 70s, and even beyond, but let's just use that as an example, because that's my favorite era for music. I've read almost all the biographies, books that I can get on the artists that I'm obsessed with. And I feel so vindicated when I read that their like drug habits were very similar to mine in the way that drugs affect the creative process, Because everyone knows like, oh yeah, some artists like whatever use drugs as a part of their creative but like, does anyone actually ever stop and think about specifically what it does? Because I can tell you every single biography. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. We're going to get back to blues harmonica. I'm going to tie this all up. But every single one of these uh, documentaries, books about my favorite artists, they all so casually mention, yeah, we were taking amphetamine tablets and mushrooms and weed. It's like, but no one ever stops to think, like, no one ever zeroes in on that and gets specific with, because for me, let me tell you, I was prescribed Adderall when I was a kid. I didn't like it. Okay, I gave it to my friends. I traded it for weed. I didn't give a shit about Adderall. And for those of you who don't know, Adderall is literally amphetamine salts. I'm not kidding. Look at the I'm serious. Look at the fucking ingredients of your Adderall. It's amphetamine salt, okay? When I was a kid, didn't care for it. Once I had been playing guitar for a year or two, one day I took some Adderall. Let me tell you, it all made sense. Like guys like Keith Richards, anyone else. I mean, even the country guy. It doesn't even just. It's not even just rock. It's jazz, blues. Country, rock, metal, everything. Look at. I mean, even for like the guys I was mentioning earlier, Megadeth. Drugs are an integral part of. At least for me, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm an asshole in the comments. Tell me why I'm wrong. But I really do think it's an integral part, and it's I'm just using amphetamines as an example because everybody took amphetamines. The Beatles took amphetamines, and when I took those amphetamine tablets, I'm telling you guys, I've never played so well. To the point that I thought this could be a problem if I had regular access to this stuff, and thankfully I don't. But any time in my life that I've taken stimulants, my guitar playing has been off the charts. A lot of times when things have clicked for me, when you're just jamming and something clicks and you instantly like level up as a guitar player, a lot of times for me, that happens to me when I'm high, like right after I smoke and I'm just kind of jamming and I stumble upon. I call it stumbling upon because I gotta be honest, I don't take credit for any of my playing. I think it just comes from the ether, and it's like, as a human being, you try to tune into that ether. Like I used to write songs, and I've seen this sentiment shared before. The best songs that I ever wrote, they just came to me. I didn't have to think about them. That's it. I just thought of an idea, of a feeling, and I just kind of sat there, and they just came out. Now, granted, I haven't been able to write a good song in years. Why? Because I hate my life. Okay, I got problems. I have very serious problems. But I just cannot stress enough the importance of drug. And again, I'm not condoning this. I'm not saying that you really should make up your own mind and do your own research, but every single drug has an effect, whether it's a psychedelic drug, marijuana, or even things like heroin. Like I've taken opiates before, and same thing. It can sort of stir up a very invigorating energy where you just find yourself in that flow state. And that's what my entire life is, by the way. I'm just trying to find that flow state energy because, again, that's what it comes down to. For me, I feel like my job as a musician is to get in the flow, because when I'm in the flow, first of all, I do my best playing, and second of all, I don't even have to think about it. It just happens. Like literally, I just turn my mind off, and it's just like a. Anyway, we went off on a tangent. I kind of regret that. Again, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Marijuana changed my life. It was never the same. Like, forever changed for the positive, right? I felt like I could understand, and I still do feel like I can understand music. Maybe not all music, but the music that matters to me, the music that calls to me, everything made a lot more sense. So I developed an obsession with music. Like the love and appreciation that I already had after I started smoking, that just ramped up. It just kept, and again, at this point I did not play anything, but I started to really enjoy late 60s era psychedelic rock, right? Just music that, think Cream, think Morgan, 1969, the early Zeppelin, like the first Zeppelin album, that type of vibe, like the sort of stony, drawn out. I couldn't really tell you a specific definition of psychedelic rock for me that's satisfactory, but I just like to think of it as rock music that's been somehow influenced by either the psychedelic era or, more importantly, psychedelic drugs themselves, such as marijuana, LSD, mushrooms, and yes, I do consider marijuana to be at least partially psychedelic. And I became obsessed with psychedelic rock. Again, Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, I know doesn't really fall into that category, but they but again, it's the same vibe, right? Or bands like the 13th Floor Elevators, who swore by LSD. You know, they would take LSD to play. They truly believed that LSD made you a better player. Now, personally, that's one that I have to say no thank you, because I've taken LSD and I find it to be way too stimulating for me. It is way too intense. In fact, I can honestly say, the way that I feel right now, I would never take LSD again in my life. I feel like if I did, I might go insane. Again, it's just an intense drug. I much prefer something like mushrooms, which are just sort of more mellow, and you have a more general idea of what you're taking. In terms of, if I take a little mushroom, I know it's going to be a microdose, whereas, man, you get acid, you could be getting 2 or 3 hits and you don't even know it. Or even worse, you could be getting half a hit or a quarter of a hit, right? All right, enough of the drug talk. Skip that. Let's moving along. I got my Hohner Rocket Low in D. I love this thing in low D. Picked this up a few months ago. I love it. It makes me feel like Sonny Boy Williamson. It feels... Sorry, my lungs have been really fucked up lately. It feels very good to play. I gotta catch my breath. I get so scared I'm gonna die soon. Everything hurts, and I feel like I can't breathe sometimes. To be fair though, these Hohner Rocket Lows, man, those bottom reeds are so heavy. Like, I'm gonna try to do a 2-draw bend on my low D, and it's not gonna be easy. Good friend of mine, Harmonica John. I don't know if anyone else knows him, but I respect him a lot as a harmonica player. He's local here to San Diego. I remember he said one time, what did he say? He said, yeah, those low harmonicas, you got to swallow your tongue to hit those bends. I said, that's right, you do have to swallow your tongue to hit those bends. I'm playing this today. I thought this would be lovely to have with me on a video. I kind of like these videos where I talk and just kind of play a little bit. But I've mentioned this before. I have a very big problem with some people, like Adam Gusso, for example. I'm sorry, Adam. I love you. You're one of my favorites. But you'll be watching his videos and he'll be telling you some life advice, and you'll be like, yeah, hell yeah, dude. And then he just goes, but like, you know, obviously not with a bass harmonica, with a real one, and it's like, whoa, like, it just, especially if you're listening in the car, it's just like, man, I'm trying to chill out. I gotta tell you guys, I don't know if this is right or wrong of me, but I can't stand the sound of a shrill harmonica. I know that the harmonica is often a shrill instrument, but it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. That's why I like these lows, or I like a very I like a punchy, mellow tone, you know, like, that's why again, I've said this before, you'll never see me playing an F harmonica on stage, for example. You'll never see me do that, ever, because I wouldn't do that to the reputation of the harmonica, man. I've seen some guys get up there with their, I don't know, I guess with an F harp, and they're just squealing all over the place, and the decibel meter is going to like 105, 110, and it's just like, oh, dude, I don't know. I can't, there really is like a perception of the harmonica as this shrill instrument. There's enough bad connotation on the harmonica, okay, that people think it's a hobo instrument, that people think it's easy to play, that we don't need any more bad bad reputation for the harmonica. So I thought this would be nice because it's such a mellow tone. It's not very shrill at all. If it sounds like I'm struggling, I am. It's very hard to move these heavy reeds. It's hard to play quick in succession, you know? But the tone is so nice. It's kind of like it's almost kind of like a saxophone in a way. All right, guys, we're getting distracted. Look, we got to finish this video up here. I'm 20 minutes in, and I promised myself I wasn't going to make this an hour-long video. Okay, so where were we? I started smoking marijuana, and it changed my life for the better. I appreciate all forms of music. I can suddenly feel like I understand it, right? So we keep going. And again, this whole time I'm listening to like psychedelic rock, and a lot of those songs are blues songs, but I don't know this yet. I'm not aware in any way. As a matter of fact, I still didn't know back then what the term blues meant or what it signified, what blues music was. I didn't learn until a few years ago. So fast forward, I get out of high school. Well, I didn't graduate. I went to an adult school, and I couldn't pass the test, so they let me cheat. So I guess I got my, but really, let's be honest, I'm a retard, okay? I tried to go to college one time. I went to the math class and they started me off on like 1 + 1 = 2, okay? So that didn't go so well. I don't know why I brought that up. I don't know why I just exposed myself like that. Jesus Christ. Moving on. So I get out of high school. I finish my adult school, okay? And I start working, and it's at this point that I realize that life might not turn out that great, And anyway, so I started doing my minimum wage jobs and kind of started drinking a little bit. And at some point, I'm dating this girl for a while. And while I'm dating her, I discover Robert Johnson, right? And I listen to Sweet Home Chicago, and I just think, oh, this is like cool old-timey guitar music. I like this. This is wicked. It's old-timey, but it has something about it that's very rock and roll, right? Of course, again, I didn't know what blues was, couldn't quite put my finger on it, didn't understand the connections. This girl broke up with me. I just started listening to Robert Johnson. I memorized every single one of his tracks, the alternate takes, and I said, damn, I need to learn guitar. Like, if I can just do one of these licks, if I can just do that shuffle, doom, 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 that's all I ever wanted. That's all I ever wanted. I just said, if I could just do that shuffle and sing along to it, man. And, well, let's just say we did that and we went a lot further than that. And it's one of the only things in my life that I'm proud of doing, right? I'm a very lazy person. I have trouble getting anything done, but that's one thing that somehow worked. Again, I don't know how. A lot of it was just dumb luck, stumbling upon something that just made sense. Getting drunk every day after work and just listening to music with a guitar. I started off with just learning 3 chords, E, A, and B. B7, actually. B and B7. So I guess technically 4, but not so much. And just from there, it took off. I realized, I started to see how many blues songs could fit into that thing of 3 chords, which, by the way, the 1-4-5 progression, again, like the topic of drugs, that's a whole other video by itself. 1-4-5. What is it about this progression? What is it about those numbers? What is it about that is so impactful that to this day, oftentimes, here's how I know that it was meant to be. This is what I was getting at. Once I figured out what blues music was, I went back and analyzed my listening history, right? I'm looking at Black Sabbath. Now that I play guitar, now that I had been playing guitar, I go and listen to Black Sabbath, and I'm looking mostly just 1-string guitar, just to see up like the relationship of the notes, and I'm starting to see the patterns, right? I'm starting to realize, oh, wait. All of this music that I loved, that I thought was rock, metal, that I thought was country or jazz or whatever, all of it has a little bit of well, maybe not jazz, I don't know if that counts, but all of it has this influence from blues music, right? And I look back at an album, Cream, Disraeli Gears, right? The psychedelic rock album by Cream, Disraeli Gears. I look back at that album now and I'm like, oh, it was there the whole time. I just didn't know. I didn't know that it was called blues music. I didn't know that's what these progressions were. And I look back at an album like that now and it's like, I can almost just naturally play some of it because so much of it is blues based, and I listened to it stoned a million times, right? So, and I started to realize the blues was there all along. I always liked blues music. My favorite ones, I went back to every single one of my favorite albums. My favorite songs were always the blues songs, specifically the blues songs, not just blues influence, the straight up blues, right? I look back to Roadhouse Blues, or go back even earlier. The first time I heard Lagrange by ZZ Top as a kid, that's a blues riff. That's like that Canned Heat. Shit, so that was embarrassing. That's a blues riff, that Lagrange riff. That when I first heard that, I must have been what, like 11, 12. That was the greatest riff I'd ever heard in my life. I was like, these guys know what's up. Such a simple riff, but it's so mean and it kicks ass. And I just kept going back to all of the music that I listened to, and it was just there the whole time. I just hadn't realized it. Even on stuff like, even on like Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, the early Black Sabbath is so blues influenced. There's such a big blues influence. I almost like to call it doom blues because of the influence of blues on the early Black Sabbath records. So, I mean, again, it was always there. I just didn't realize it. I looked back and I was like, oh, this blues thing, I really like this. I just didn't know it. You know, the same scales. I'm obsessed with the blues pentatonic scale. I didn't know it. But again, all of my favorite solos, guitar players, whatever, use that blues pentatonic, which I know everyone does. But for me, again, at this point, I had really zeroed in on blues. I'd started listening to the country blues. And of course, it was around this point that I got into harmonica, seeing the relationship. I could see in the old records that they were playing the harmonica, and also in the newer ones like the Doors' Roadhouse Blues with John Sebastian, who I think he's credited as somebody else on the album because of some label dispute or something like that. But, and again, it's like I look back and all of these, you know, or Love Me Two Times by the Doors is also, it's not a straight blues, but it's a blues riff. It's based in the blues. A lot of this music, they literally took the chords, the same, like, and they just flipped, you know, they just switched a couple things around, added a little bit of gain, some fuzz, a little bit of reverb, whatever you want to call it. And so it's at this point that I kind of dive in, right? This was like, I realized it's all been leading up to this. I just didn't realize it. That's what I meant at the beginning of the video when I said I never knew what blues harmonica or slide was. I didn't know what blues music was or the significance of it. And now I look back, and I mean, it's like I said, sometimes I'll think of like a pop song that stays in my head that I like. Come to find out, it's a 1-4-5 progression or something very close. So close that I can just pick up my slide and just start playing along. I just got to know what key it's in, right? And this applies to all kinds of music. This applies to country, again, country, rock, metal. If I just find the key, a lot of times I'll find that this blues stuff that I've been learning, it just applies to everything. So that's kind of what made me jump headfirst into blues. Now, harmonica, I started playing, and I first learned how to read tabs, right? How fucking stupid is that, right? I was reading tabs. I was like, okay, blow 4. At some point, I realized that that's ridiculous, right? There's only 10 holes on the harmonica. Once you go up and down, you know, a few thousand times, you sort of realize all the harmonicas are the same. You know, they're all the same tuning for the most part. I know that you can get special tunings, but... And I slowly start to figure out how the instrument works. How I was able to bend, I don't really know. The only thing that I can think of... oh my god, my mind just went blank. Oh yeah, sorry. My grandfather was a chromatic harmonica player. And I like to imagine in my head that the DNA like carries down somehow, because for me, harmonica always felt very natural, right? Like, of course, you start off with the chords. You're just, you know, you fuck around like that for a few months, and then one day you learn how to bend. I was watching an Adam Gusso video because I wanted to learn the style of blues harmonica, and he said, I forget, he says something along the lines of, what's a classic like bluesy bend? The 4-hole draw, right? And so I tried it, and with my tongue, you sort of create a chamber in your mouth, and you just pull down, and it pulls the reed down. So I went from doing this to doing this. You know, I'm able, well, I'm playing a bass harmonica again. I'm playing a low D. So this probably isn't the best thing to show you on, but. Well, I think we just did some weird position there. I was trying to find some good bends to show you guys, but so I learned that. That's up. So there's the. Then I learned how to bend. After I learned how to bend, I did individual notes. Just being able to play one single note, like if you were a clarinet. And that's it. Once you can bend and once you can play individual notes, come home every day, you pick up a... I'm sorry, no. I didn't mean to give that as like an instruction. This is what worked for me. Once I learned how to bend and once I learned how to play single notes, I just started playing anything. I would play jazz songs. Like I would find like a Peggy Lee song that she did with Benny Goodman. Here's one. It's called "I Threw a Kiss in the Ocean" by Benny Goodman and Peggy Lee, sometime between 1944 and 1952. Sorry, again, I'm not used to playing the low. So that was the next step, is I started playing along to Peggy Lee. You know, I'd have Peggy Lee records playing in my head all day because I'm obsessed with her singing. I'm obsessed with those early jazz records from the late 40s. I don't usually listen to anything past 1959 or 1960, but the really early Peggy Lee stuff, just the straight jazz, I was obsessed with it, still am. I started playing that on this. So that one that I just did was I Threw a Kiss in the Ocean. There's another one. That one was called, God damn it. I shouldn't have got stoned before doing this, I knew it. Never treats me so... Oh, it's I Got It Bad, and That Ain't Good. Once again, by Peggy Lee and Benny Goodman. I was obsessed with these songs, and I started to learn them note by note, just seeing, and oftentimes in the wrong key. Obviously, both of those songs are not meant to be played in this key, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, all harmonicas, the intervals are what matters, and the intervals are all the same. You could just as well be playing the same song on an F harmonica. Some people are like, oh, you need a A harmonica for Roadhouse Blues. No, you don't. If you're just by yourself, you can play Roadhouse Blues on a G harmonica, you can play it on a C harmonica, you can play it on a D and F. It doesn't matter. The intervals are all the same. Now, if you're singing, you might have trouble switching keys like that, but if you're just playing by yourself, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so it didn't matter the key to me. I would just think in my head, I would just think, never treats me sweet and gentle, and then I would just go, you know, like, there's only 10 holes, and again, once you know how to bend, there's not a whole lot of mystery. You got what you got to work with. There's charts online that tell you exactly what notes are available. I don't overblow. I'm not good enough to overblow. I don't know how. I've tried before. I can't do it. I also don't tongue block. There's a lot of things that I'm missing as a part of my harmonica education. But for me, I've always been on a need-to-know basis. I've always been very happy with my playing. I've never stressed out about not being a tongue blocker. I've never missed it. Just never felt the need to use it. Again, I'm on a need-to-know basis. For me, it's all fun. It's just for the love of the music. That's it. I just wanted to be a part of the music. So again, I'd come home every day after my shitty ass fucking dishwasher pizza delivery job. God, I hated that job. The food was really good though, and the tips were incredible. But fuck that place. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't that bad, but I just fuck. I hated doing those mountains of dishes, man. And just yeah, I remember I just would be so sad on the way home every single day, and I had to drive like an hour and a half, like an hour and a half to my dad's sometimes because I didn't get along with my mom at the time, so I had to drive all the way from San Diego to Temecula. It was fucking horrific, but a big part of that was what got me into the blues scene. I really identified with these blues themes, which aren't always sad, but a lot of times they are. And the thing about blues music is that it really can appeal to the common man. There's a lot of spoken general truth, and something about it was very comforting at that time and even now, which again, like I said, I hate my life. I'm not in a good place, right? So when I listen to blues music, there is something, they say blues music makes the blues go away. I don't know if that's true. I'm not entirely convinced, but it definitely, there's that sort of, I don't know, when it's general truth. I mean, how many blues songs are there about working a tough job and your girl's not giving you the right type of love and you're always broke and she's probably seeing someone and, like what? These are universal topics that so many people have had to deal with, and it's not just a man or woman thing. There's so many great female blues singers as well. It doesn't matter. The point is it applies to life in general, right? And I took a lot of solace in that, and it's just, look, a few years ago, I would have thought that a lot of this old stuff was very cheesy, but I must have trained my ear to it because now I really crave it, and I think about it a lot, and it's really like a blues fever. I don't have any control over it. Again, it just kind of happened. Same thing with the guitar. You just stumble upon these things, but I think it was meant to be. I don't know why. I have no idea why it was meant to be, but for some reason it feels that way to me. Because I see some other people out there that like really want to learn, but there's just something like crucial missing. And I have plenty of crucial things missing, but I'm very happy with my playing. And I feel like just so fortunate to be, because I've tried, there's friends that have asked me to teach them and I've tried, but like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, again, it came very naturally to me. I couldn't instruct somebody other than like basic things, as far as, holding it and learning the single notes. But yeah, I mean, once I got into blues, I've always had a harmonica with me. I buy as many harmonicas as I can. I waste all my money on harmonicas. That's why I'm probably broke. I buy them from different brands and different keys and different tunings. I love to open them up and tinker with them. It's become just this whole thing, it's become almost like a lifestyle, this blues thing. I've been getting into customizing harmonicas, and most of the time what I listen to is blues. Not always. I'm still very much into hard rock, heavy metal, country, jazz especially, although not so much this year, but yeah, it's weird. I go through these like phases, psychedelic rock, jazz, hard rock, metal. I kind of go through these phases, but I try to incorporate a blues influence into anything that I do, And even for, like guitar, I mean, again, they're all blues-based instruments that I play with guitar and with the slide, with the harmonica. So, yeah, again, guys, I don't know how it happened, but to me, it feels like it was meant to be. I'm not the best, not even close. I'm just, I'm like the level above beginner, whatever that is, right? So there's probably like beginner, da 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 da, and then up here you got like the top guys, right? I'm not. I see a lot of players out there that I'm like, man, I wish I could play like that, and I just can't. I don't have it in me. Everyone develops their own style, and how you play, the tone. People don't realize this. The tone comes from what happens beyond the comb, right? A lot of the tone comes from here. If the tone came from here, then anybody could just blow into it and get that little Walter sound. But no, the tone really, and I don't know what's going on in there. I can feel the muscles moving like when I bend, and but I don't know. I couldn't explain it to you. I have no but yeah, again, a very long way to go, because the more that I learn about blues harmonica, the more I'm like, oh, I actually know nothing. You know, like I can't play in other positions. I really can't. Everything I do is blues in second position. It's very simplistic, but I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm very happy with my playing. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's hard to find the motivation to play. It's hard to have a good session, but when you have one, anyway, wow, we actually covered basically everything on the list, and it only took me 40 fucking minutes. Gotta start making these videos shorter, guys. We can't do this. How are we ever gonna get an audience when the videos are 40 fucking minutes long? I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget about anything. I had a lot to say on this subject. I'm just shocked that I play blues music. It was just weird. Never would have expected it, and now I love it, and it's a part of my life. And yeah, I'm not even American. I was born in Barcelona, Spain, and blues is an American music. It's an African American traditional music, if I'm not mistaken. And for some reason it calls to me, and again, I see the same patterns repeated over and over again in pop and rock. There's so many 1-4-5s, so many this and that. I just see the influence. I was just saying the other day that Sheryl Crow, what's that song? All I Want to Do. It's not exactly a blues, but you can bust out a slide guitar and hit some pentatonic licks in the key of E, and they will fit right in there. I promise. So what comes next? I don't know. I don't have any plans. There is no plans. It's not like I want, again, it's not like I want to do it. I have no idea why I play. I just do, and I'm happy with it. Don't really have any particular plans at the moment. Like I said, I've tried to teach, and I realized that it would basically be impossible for me to teach harmonica unless it was a student that already like could bend and do individual notes and had a feeling for the blues and all that stuff. But that's already too specific. So it's just I might make some videos on like tips because there's definitely a handful of tips that I think can help anybody be a better harmonica player. So maybe I'm trying to think of more harmonica related videos to make. If you have any suggestions, pop it down below. Guys, I'm out of here.